Hello and welcome back to the Wheelarder channel. Today I'm going to be making a delicious wartime recipe. Now this is actually for an orange sponge cake, and it's not your typical fluffy light sponge. It's quite eggy, but it's a really nice taste and it's a nice texture as well, and I thought I'd make this recipe since oranges are actually in season from January until about I think March, April, and although they are not growing in this country, they are imported and best at this time of year. And we are quite well known for making delicious marmalade recipes. That's quite often seen in the old Scottish cookbooks, and I do love marmalade, but I thought I would make this wartime orange cake just for something different. You could also layer this cake up as well, using 2 layers of the cake, and you could also use this sponge in those mini loaf tins as well. That would work really well for this recipe too. So let's get started on our traditional wartime orange cake. So for this wartime orange cake, you're going to need 3 eggs, 170 grams of caster sugar, 2 tablespoons of mixed sweet peel, juice of 2 oranges, 115 grams of plain flour, 1 teaspoon of baking powder, icing sugar, and some sweet peel and grated rind for the toppings. And you can also sprinkle some icing sugar on the top as well. So we're just going to start this recipe by giving our cake tin a really good grease. I like to use the wrapper from a block of butter. I just find it works really well, and my mum used to do this in fact as well. So whenever I open my butter, I always fold up the wrappers and keep them in the fridge just for this purpose. So we're going to add our eggs into the mixing bowl, and we're going to whisk those up really well with the sugar. So if you just whisk those on high for a couple of minutes, I've speeded up this video, but it was a couple of minutes that I was whisking for, just until they are really light and fluffy. You want to get lots of air in there. And they'll be nice and light in colour as well, and when they're light in colour, that's when they are ready. So we're now going to add in our candied mixed peel, our sweet peel. We're just going to give that a good mix through. And we're going to add in the juice of 2 oranges. Now these were medium-sized oranges, so it's not the huge oranges that you can get, but the medium-sized ones. So we're just going to blend that through really well. And we're now going to add in our baking powder and our flour. And we're going to give that a good mix together for a couple of minutes until it is fully incorporated. If your oranges were slightly larger and you did put more juice into the mix here, you could add a little extra flour if you find it's a little bit too runny. You'll kind of get an idea of the consistency when I pour it into the cake pan. If you find yours is a little bit runnier than that, then please feel free to add a little bit more flour. So we just want to make sure that all the flour is completely combined with everything in the bowl, and we'll give it a really good whisk through. And then we're going to pour that into our greased cake tin. So this is the consistency that you're after. As I say, if yours is a little runnier, then please feel free to add a little bit more flour. And the lumps in there are that's just the candied peel that's going in there. It's not lumps of flour. So we're then going to bake this in the oven at 160 for 30 minutes, or around about 30 minutes. And when it's ready, it should look something like this. Now mine has risen quite high in the middle, so I'm actually going to level that off. So I've left it to cool for about 15 to 20 minutes. It's still quite hot, but it's cool enough to take out of the cake tin. So I've taken it out here, and I'm now going to carve the top of that off. I'm actually just going to take the bottom of the cake tin off as well. see when I take it off that it's still all nice and steamy hot, so I'm still keeping it on the cooling rack. So to level it off, I'm just going to cut the top of the cake. Now it does have to be quite cool to do this, otherwise it tends to break apart a little bit. But as I say, I've left it to cool for about 15 to 20 minutes, and that just makes it nice and level, and I've turned it upside down to decorate the bottom of the cake. And you can see it's really nice and soft in the middle. It's not your typical fluffy sponge. It's quite an eggy sort of sponge mixture, but it's really, really nice. And of course that top bit always gets eaten by the kids. So when it is completely cooled, I'm going to ice the cake by just drizzling on some icing sugar. So I just made up this icing sugar with a couple of tablespoons of icing sugar and some water. So you're looking for this kind of consistency of thickness, the icing sugar. And I've just put a drizzle on. I haven't totally covered the cake, and this is how I like it, but please feel free to put more on if you want to. Now I'm just grating on some orange around here as well. You can't see it very clearly, but it is going on the cake there ever so slightly. And I just think it gives the cake a really nice colour. So because it's a wartime recipe, I'm sure they maybe were limited in what they could put on top of their cake, and they might have just had it plain as it was, but I like to just put a little bit of icing on for a bit of decoration, and I like to put a bit of the candied sweet peel onto the top as well. I just think it just looks really pretty. And you could put a dusting of icing sugar on there as well. I just put a sprinkle on with my hand, and I dusted over afterwards. And that's our delicious Scottish wartime orange cake. So I hope you enjoyed making this delicious wartime orange cake, and if you're over on Instagram and you took a photo, please feel free to tag me and I'll post it up in my stories. And as always, you can get a copy of this recipe over on my website. It's angiemilne.com, and you can print it out from there as well. And if you're new here and you did enjoy this video, then please feel free to click subscribe, and if you click that little bell next to it, you'll be notified of my new videos coming out in the future. I've got lots of Scottish recipes coming up this year, traditional Scottish recipes, farmhouse classics, and all sorts of delicious things coming your way. And I have my cookbook that I'm working on as well, so that is due to be out soon. And I also have my free cookbook to hand out to you all too. So stay tuned, and I hope to see you all again soon. Lots of love. Bye bye.